Hi ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. I've just been advised of this new game and I want to try it out, but my point of view will be from a absolute beginner. Like, you know what a destroyer is, but you never played a game of a submarine hunter. Okay, so I know a little bit about the game. I played similar games, sea games before, but obviously not this one. So I will be taking the role of I haven't got a freaking clue on how to play it. Okay, because I have seen people here on YouTube giving on playing the game, but not merely as a tutorial per se, but just a gameplay. Okay, and this, in my opinion, that's not the best way when you start in a new game. So I'm going to go through the tutorial, see what we can learn, and then we go to start the demo. Okay, the demo is just a small campaign. I think it's an hour long and you need to achieve a certain thing, so basically destroy the U-boat. So let's have a go, yeah? Right, so we have got 5 control areas, shall we say. The bridge, the combat, sonar, TRR, I don't know what the hell is that. Okay, and the gun director and lookout. That's probably the gun director is just to fire the guns, and that's it. So this is the well, okay, let's have a look at the bridge first.
Welcome to the video tutorial. Its role is to give you a detailed explanation of how to conduct anti-submarine warfare in Destroyer, the U-boat hunter.
Yep.
Let's begin with our mission, which is to protect the convoy against the U-boat. That's right. Your task in the game is not as much to sink the U-boat as it is to protect the convoy from its attacks.
Okay.
Bear that in mind while you play, as it will help you decide when to press the attack and how to prevent the U-boat from reaching the convoy unchecked. Let us start with maneuvering and situational awareness, as these two crucial skills will allow you to achieve the upper hand in battle. The speed at which you maneuver is key, as it has a huge impact on your ability to use the sonar. You can use it effectively only at a head standard or slower. On the other hand, the faster you go, the more distance you cover and the faster you can make turns. It will be one of your key decisions to make sure that your speed is well chosen for the task at hand. One piece of advice for beginners is to approach your contact slowly. Don't rush in, because you need to give yourself enough time to analyze the situation and come up with an attack solution. Ahead 1/3 is one of the most useful speed settings in the game. Once the contact is at 1000 yards or closer, slow down and analyze enemy movement. It will pay off. You can read your current course from the compass, but it is also given below the helm icon. As regards steering, there are 3 ways in which you can control the helm: by turning the helm manually, by clicking on one of the numbers next to the helm indicator, or by typing in a new course after clicking on the helm icon.
Okay.
The first way is good for making small adjustments and precision maneuvers, and is quite natural. Just click and drag the helm in the desired direction.
Okay.
The second way is great for controlling turns by either tightening or opening them. This is very useful when you have a constant bearing drift, that is, when approaching a U-boat from the side, and allows you to tighten or open a turn with a single click. Tightening or opening turns like this is also very useful when searching for the U-boat. The last way is to simply type in the new course. The advantage that this option offers is that you can type the course in quickly and not worry about executing the maneuver from start to finish. As you can see, each of the above has its advantages, so make sure that you use the best way in any given situation. Last but not least is the target bearing indicator. This clever device shows the ship's silhouette, along with all the information you might need to maneuver. The 3 lines on the inner disc always show true north, so you can see which way you are heading, but you can also read the target bearing from the ring that turns between true and relative bearings. It is like a person standing next to you and pointing to the target with their hand. The bearing indicator can take information from both radar and sonar and is of great help both when you first establish contact and when you are making your final attack approach. It is also worth mentioning that you can look around at each station by holding the left mouse button and moving the mouse around.
Okay.
Like so. You can also switch between stations by pressing keys from 1 to 6 on your keyboard. This enables you to make quick transitions between stations without using the mouse at all. This concludes the presentation of the bridge in Destroyer.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, fine. Let's watch what combat is.
The Combat Information Center has 3 different stations: Radar, DRT, and OSC. Let's begin with the radar, which is the simplest of the 3. The radar is meant to give you a quick overview of what's happening on the surface. If the radar picks up the U-boat, it will appear as a bright spot on the display. Our destroyer is located in the center, and the formation that you can see here is our convoy.
Sure.
In general, the most useful thing about the radar is that you can quickly determine your position against the convoy, as well as see what course to take in order to get where you want to be in relation to it. As you can see here, we have a target with a particular bearing, so if you assume that it is going to attack this flank, then we can roughly determine that the initial intercept course should be this. Of course, we will need to correct it as we go, but in general, radar is an excellent tool, especially when used as a reference for your search plans and other maneuvers in relation to the convoy.
Yep.
In order to increase our situational awareness even further, we can use the DRT, the Dead Reckoning Tracer. The moving light represents our destroyer, and the protractor arm allows you to quickly convert the data from radar and sonar into a visual representation of both destroyer and enemy movement.
Right.
You can zoom
Plotting.
in and out with the mouse wheel, and you can scroll the camera around with the mouse wheel pressed. Click on the center of the moving light to mark the current destroyer position, and snap the 0 point of the ruler to that position. The ruler will now pivot around that position and allow you to mark the enemy position by checking bearing and distance. After 2 or more of such updates, you should have a good understanding of how the enemy is maneuvering, which will allow you to prepare your attack much better. You can also snap the ruler to the last 2 enemy positions and draw a line to predict their further movement. You can do that by dragging the mouse cursor along the ruler with the left mouse button pressed. This way, you can also draw lines from each destroyer position. Remember that it is absolutely crucial to change the DRT scale from 1 to 1000 to 1 to 100 whenever the U-boat is 1000 yards away or closer. The close range is best used with slower speeds. If the plotting surface gets too crowded, remember that you can erase everything by clicking on the Erase All button. You can also erase particular dots and crosses by using the Eraser button. Make sure to reposition the moving light whenever it gets close to the edge of the table. You can do that by clicking on it and dragging it along the table with the left mouse button pressed. You can also engage the pencil carriage of the DRT by clicking on the Pencil Mode button. The light bug will now draw a continuous line to represent destroyer maneuvers. Lastly, we have now introduced the Auto Plot option in the Pause menu. Once enabled, it will plot both destroyer and U-boat positions for you. Let us now see how to get a better hold of the situation during the last stage of the attack, and to that end we will be using the Own Ship's Course and Enemy Bearing Projector, OSC for short. Let us assume that after analyzing the U-boat's maneuvers with the DRT, you have a mental picture of how you want to attack. You now need to maneuver in a way which will position you ahead of the U-boat's bow to allow you to attack with a depth charge barrage. The OSC projector will facilitate that crucial part of the attack for you by displaying the ship's silhouette together with enemy bearing. The controls for the OSC projector are very similar to the DRT, as you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out and keep the mouse wheel pressed to scroll the camera around. You can also erase everything if you need to by clicking on the eraser button. The interesting thing about the OSC projector is that it does not have a fixed scale, and you can calculate distances in a way that suits you best. I personally recommend taking each dotted ring as 100 yards and using the bearing rings as a reference for 600 yards. However, you can calculate distances here in any way that is convenient for you, so if you decide to treat each ring as 1000 yards, then it is fine, as long as it works for you. As you might have noticed, the OSC projector is somewhat similar to the bearing indicator on the bridge, but its advantage is that it allows you to actually track the contact minute by minute and paint an overall picture of enemy maneuvers just before the attack. Once you begin closing in, it is advisable to follow the target and adjust your turns so that, in the end, you arrive before the U-boat's bow just in time to deliver a deadly barrage of depth charges. The final stage of the attack will probably require you to switch to the bridge every once in a while to adjust your turns, and then finally to the sonar room where you will be able to determine the optimal time to fire. One piece of advice that you can try out is to attempt to close in on the U-boat while keeping the bearing steady. If you manage to find a course that allows you to close in with little to no bearing drift, it means that you are approaching the target exactly the way you should. If, on the other hand, you get a strong bearing drift, it means that the U-boat is passing by quickly, which usually means that your approach is less than optimal. Again, if you find this process too difficult, you can always enable the autoplot for OSC in the pause menu. This concludes the presentation of combat in Destroyer.
Okay, nice. I didn't get it 100% obviously because it was very swift, but doesn't matter. Let's go with sonar.
The sonar room is of utmost importance whenever the U-boat dives under the surface. The tutorial for the sonar room has been split into two separate parts, as both sonar and the tactical range recorder present in the sonar room both require more explanation than any of the remaining stations in the game. As soon as you lose radar contact, your top priority should be to re-establish contact using sonar. Pay close attention to the bearing and distance that the radar operator reports upon losing contact, because if you act quickly, you should be able to pinpoint the exact location and continue tracking the contact without too much speculation. This is also where the DRT really comes into its own, because if you use it on a regular basis, the plot that you have drawn will be of great help in terms of helping you come up with a search plan. If, however, you lose contact and fail to re-establish it for a while, then this part of the game may really test your deduction ability. That being said, let's take a look at the sonar console. On the right hand side, you can see the round plate with the sonar indicator. You can drag it around with the left mouse button pressed in order to search in the direction of your choosing. However, most of the time it is advisable to order the sonar man to search a given sector, which you can determine by clicking on the appropriate icon on the right. You can also change the direction of the sweep by clicking on the arrow icon. Above the sonar indicator, you can see the tactical range recorder, the TRR, built into the sonar stack. It measures the distance to target by burning dark traces onto special paper and serves to visualize how your distance to the tracked contact changes with the passage of time. On the left hand side, you can see a round CRT display which shows current distance to target as well as its bearing drift. If the line bends to the right, then it means that the contact is moving to our right, bearings are increasing, and vice versa. If it stays straight, it means that the bearing is constant, which generally leads to a well-executed approach. A new option that we have introduced is the relative bearing mode that you can switch on and off using this button. Normally, the bearings on the sonar console refer to cardinal points, so 0 or 360 degrees is the north. Once you switch into relative mode, however, the bearings on the outer circumference will relate to our destroyer's bow. with 0 or 360 degrees representing the bow. The compass in the middle will now turn in accordance with your course changes, and you will be able to see relative bearings on the outside and true bearings on the inside. The relative mode is great for making the final attack approach, as you can immediately tell from the sonarman's reports whether you need to turn left or right in order to keep following the enemy. The true bearing mode, on the other hand, is better for long-range tracking and searching if you lose contact, as it correlates better with the radar and the DRT, which use true bearings. Now, let us touch upon a very important subject, and that is the various limitations of the sonar. As you may or may not know, the sonar technology in 1942 did not allow to determine the depth of the contact unless the operator was a very highly skilled individual. Still, there was all sorts of information that the sonarman could infer from analyzing the contact, and you are going to hear them in the form of various reports. In general, the most valuable piece of information will be the estimated depth of the contact, which is only reported as shallow, medium, or deep. Make sure to keep track of that information, as it will be of utmost importance when preparing to launch your depth charge barrage. Another thing you absolutely need to remember about is that sonar won't work if you exceed a head standard. Therefore, in order to effectively search for the U-boat, you need to go at a head standard or slower. A pulsating icon will appear to remind you of that should you forget. Other limitations that you need to be aware of is that the sonar will fail to receive any echoes from the stern due to propeller noise. When searching, try making turns in a way that will avoid pointing the stern towards probable U-boat locations, as you won't get any echoes from there. The echoes are also blocked by merchant ship propeller noise, as well as by exploding depth charges, so please take that into account if you cannot find the U-boat for a prolonged period of time. However, the most typical sonar limitation that you will come across most often is the so-called minimum sonar range. The minimum range stems from the fact that the sonar beam is pointing downwards, but in 1942, due to technological limitations, you could not point it exactly downwards. Therefore, the closer you get to your contact and the deeper it is, the bigger the chances of the contact going under the sonar beam and avoiding detection. All in all, if you lose contact and cannot regain it for a long time, it may mean a lot of different things. Perhaps the U-boat is stalking you or is very close, but deep below the surface. Perhaps one of your attacks has threatened it and it is limping away in silent mode, submerged as deeply as it can. Or perhaps it's already on the other flank of the convoy, which you could not detect as it sneaked away under the protective bubble of merchant ship propeller noise. Any of these and a few more could be the truth, so remember to use the DRT regularly so that your search plans are based on solid foundations instead of guesswork. This concludes the presentation of sonar in Destroyer.
Well, that was a mouthful, but okay.
In order to determine the optimal time to fire depth charges, you will need to use the Tactical Range Recorder, TRR for short. This clever device requires you to input destroyer speed and target depth by using this pointer and placing it in the correct position on the scale. The vertical lines represent destroyer speed in knots, while the horizontal lines refer to the sinking time of depth charges in seconds. In order to set the TRR right, you need to know the speed of the destroyer, left-hand side of the screen, and the current depth of the U-boat, given by the sonarman. Once you get to know these two variables, set the pointer vertically, depth, and horizontally, destroyer speed, so that it matches the actual data. Please note the reminder above the scale that gives the sinking time for shallow, medium, and deep. The graph drawn by the TRR is a time range plot, and the angle of the graph translates to the so-called range rate, which is the speed of closing the distance to the target. The easiest way to think about it is to treat it as a coordinate system where the x-axis represents distance and the y-axis represents time. Therefore, as you close the distance, you will observe that the graph starts leaning to the left. The faster you approach the target, the more heavily it will lean. If you start going away from the target, it will start leaning right, and will be completely vertical if you keep the same distance. You do not need to calculate the exact U-boat speed, as it is inherent in the range rate. Now, if you set everything right on the scale, you need to rotate the plotter bar to match the angle of the graph. Use the red lines to help you. Assuming you got the speed and depth setting right, and the plotter bar is properly aligned with the angle of the graph, the time to fire comes when the left edge of the graph goes beyond the dotted firing line. You can also turn automatic TRR targeting in the pause menu, although even when using it, you will still need to align the plotter bar correctly and launch your depth charges at the right time. In the TRR view, you can zoom in and scroll the camera around just as you can in the DRT and OSC view. This way, you can apply settings very precisely, and you should also attempt to align the plotter bar with the graph as precisely as you can. I can actually share a recommendation from an authentic US Navy sonarman handbook, which advises the operator to tilt their head when aligning the plotter bar with the graph. Therefore, try being as precise as you can, but at the same time remember that while the TRR can give you the optimal time to fire, it does not solve the problem of where you need to be to hit. Therefore, make sure to steer in a way that will allow you to end up in front of the U-boat's bow, because the only parameter that the TRR will give you is the optimal time to fire. You still need to be at the right location to make it work. The three icons on the left allow you to load and arm, and also rearm your depth charges for the given depth. If you click once, you will notice the icon fill up, which represents the time the depth charge crew needs to load and arm the depth charges. Once the barrage is ready to fire, you will notice that the icon has changed to represent that. If the U-boat changes depth, you can rearm the barrage for a different depth, which also requires some time, albeit much less than loading. At this point, it is worth mentioning how you should go about the whole attack procedure, because it requires the combined effort of combat, bridge, and sonar to carry out the attack. Combat allows you to process spatial data, sonar deals with the time of the attack, and the bridge allows you to steer precisely. Switching between these three problem areas may seem daunting at first, but it's really a matter of giving yourself enough time to come up with a plan, and then executing it step by step. First, analyze contact maneuvers in combat and build a mental picture of how you want to attack. Then, set the TRR. Don't leave it for last, because you won't be able to make it, especially when coming in fast. After you set the TRR, you can start your approach. During the approach, switch between combat and bridge to make sure that everything is going as planned, and apply corrections whenever necessary. When the time to fire draws near, a pop-up window with a TRR camera will remind you that it is time to take a look at the TRR one last time and apply final corrections before firing. Now that you know everything you should know, let's be honest. Sinking the U-boat will not be an easy job, because quite often the U-boat captain will dodge your attack at the very last moment, just when or after you have lost sonar contact. This is a tough nut to crack and requires everything I spoke about earlier, that is, the coordination between bridge, combat, and sonar. The attack sequence will often test your intuition, will require a little bit of guesswork and sometimes even luck. Consequently, it may take you weeks, if not longer, before you manage to score a kill or even damage the U-boat. If you manage to pull it off, however, the level of satisfaction will go through the roof. Also, the U-boat won't be able to dodge your attacks indefinitely. Keep practicing, repeat your attacks, and sooner or later you will catch it off guard. Also, remember your mission. You do not win the game just by sinking the U-boat. Your job is to make sure that none of the cargo ships get sunk. So, as long as you finish the demo with no ships lost, you're a winner. This concludes the presentation of TRR in Destroyer.
Right, that was a mouthful. So now, final one, gun director.
The gun director and lookout stations require the least time to explain, and therefore they are covered in a single video. The gun director houses the optics of the main gun battery and is used to attack a surfaced U-boat, as well as illuminate the area around the destroyer to increase your lookout's field of vision. You can look around by moving the mouse with the left mouse button pressed, and you can press the space bar to fire. The icons on the right allow you to zoom in and out, switch to aiming by radar, turn on the searchlights, and change ammunition between point detonating rounds and star shells. I guess that zooming in requires no explanation, so let's focus on the remaining options at your disposal. Radar aim allows you to automate the aiming process and is a very convenient feature, especially at long ranges and in low visibility conditions. As always, however, you need to wait for the guns while they traverse to the designated bearing. You can observe that process by following the floating reticles that represent each of the 5 mounts. You can also check each mount's status in the bottom right corner of the screen. In general, a surfaced U-boat is a very small target by naval warfare standards, which makes it super difficult to hit at ranges beyond 1000 yards. Regardless, it is possible to score hits against the U-boat and damage its hull, so you should take that opportunity whenever it presents itself. What is more important, however, is the fact that your surface fire will quickly force the U-boat to dive. This is very important, as the U-boat is much slower under the surface, and so it will use every opportunity to catch up with the convoy by covering distance on the surface. By forcing it to submerge, you are essentially depriving it of the speed advantage. However, making it submerge will also force you to search for it using sonar. That's why you should be prepared to start tracking it underwater as soon as you decide to fire. In general, the farther you make the U-boat dive away from the convoy, the better. Just make sure to use the DRTV for that, so you know where to look for it later. The searchlight is a quick way of lighting up an object so that your lookouts can see it. The weather conditions in the demo aren't very tough, but the lookout's range of vision in this kind of weather isn't great either. You can help the lookouts even more by firing star shells. After changing ammo, direct the guns at where you wish illuminate and fire your star shells. They will increase the lookout's probability of spotting an object in that direction for as long as they are in the air. As for the lookouts, they are the eyes of the ship. They allow you to maneuver within the convoy and also report on various objects they see, including the U-boat and the U-boat's periscope feather. Move the mouse with the left button pressed in order to move the camera. You can also zoom in and out using the binoculars icon. The lookout's range of vision is quite limited, but you can improve it by launching star shells or by turning on the searchlight from the gun director. One last thing you need to know about is that you can switch between true and relative bearings for observers and the gun director by clicking on true or relative above the bearings. It acts both as a reminder and a way to quickly change between one and the other. You can also choose your preferred mode in the pause menu. In summary, please bear in mind that a lot of the functionalities presented in the demo are still in development and will only reach their maturity in the final version of the game. Regardless, we sincerely hope that you will enjoy the demo and that you will be awaiting the full version of Destroyer once it releases on Steam. This concludes the presentation of Gun Director and Lookouts in Destroyer.
Well, now you've seen it. I think I got half of it, to be quite honest. It's not that straightforward. So let's go back and start the demo and see what a mess I make of this this first encounter. Let's have a go, yeah?
December 7th, 1941. The Japanese unleash a devastating attack against Pearl Harbor, dealing a painful blow to the Pacific Fleet. More than 2,000 American servicemen perish while attempting to repel the onslaught. And although the attack fails to knock out the strategically important aircraft carriers, It succeeds in shaking the American people to the core. Entering the war is no longer a choice. It is a necessity. On December 11, Nazi Germany declares war against the United States. Just a few days later, Operation Paukenschlag is put in motion by the commander of U-boats, Karl Dönitz. This long-range operation is an attempt to cripple the U.S. merchant fleet, which holds a key role in supplying Great Britain in its struggle against Hitler. All along the U.S. East Coast, German U-boats sink hundreds of American tankers and cargo ships, slowly tightening the noose around the neck of Great Britain. It is clear that without American support to their war effort, Britain's survival will be measured not in months, but in weeks. With a majority of its might focused on fighting the Japanese in the Pacific, the U.S. Navy is left with very few anti-submarine vessels available for the Atlantic theater, not even remotely enough to introduce an efficient convoy system that could protect the merchant fleet from the U-boats. The bloodbath continues for months, and the fire from burning tankers becomes a common sight from the shores of the East Coast. The survival of Great Britain now hangs by a thread. Finally, in May 1942, the U.S. Navy manages to muster enough anti-submarine ships to put the convoy system into effect. Now, with the help of the Royal Canadian Navy, merchant ships are escorted along the U.S. coast to form convoys around Newfoundland. Only then are they ready, having been joined by their guardian angels, to set out on the perilous journey across the Atlantic. At last, the steel wolves of Dönitz will be facing a challenge. They are about to meet a whole new breed of enemy. Fast, maneuverable, and more than capable of sending a submarine to the bottom. The Fletcher-class destroyer.
Okay, here we
Surface
go.
radar has a new contact. Bearing 262. Range 4,500 yards.
262, so it should be combat, right? No, sonar. No, sonar, combat.
Stand by to fire.
That'd be silly.
Contact Able now bears 261. Range 4,300 yards.
How do you get to that plot? Yeah. Oh, here you are.
Contact Able now bears 258. Range 4,100 yards.
Right, this is where we are. And this thing moves, right? Okay, yeah, sure. So we got two contacts, okay? So, two contacts from...
Contact Able now bears 256. Range 3,900 yards.
Okay. So the bearing was 256.
Contact Able now bears 253. Range 3,700 yards.
3,000. $700 here.
Contact Able now bears 251. Range 3,500 yards. Contact Able now bears 247. Range 3,300 yards.
247. Somewhere down there. What's the range? 247. 330. 33. Yeah,
Contact Able now bears 244. Range 3,200 yards.
3,200. Yeah, but hold on. From where to where? 244. 244. 32.
Contact Able now bears 240. Range 3,000 yards.
240. So that means, let's say with the bridge. Where are we?
Contact Able now bears 236. Range 2,900 yards.
Rudder 25 degrees left. Rudder 25 degrees left. Aye, sir.
Steady as she goes.
Aye. Steady on course 346.
346.
Contact Able now bears 231. Range 2,800 yards.
Man, I'm making a mess out of this because
Rudder 25 degrees left.
Rudder 25
Oh.
degrees left. Aye, sir.
Hard left rudder.
Hard left rudder. Aye, sir.
yeah, but we're not moving, you idiot.
Contact Able now bears 224.
We were
Range
stationary, right.
2,800 yards.
All engines ahead full.
All engines ahead full. Aye, sir.
224. So okay, 224.
New course. 224.
Course 224. Aye, sir.
Contact Able now bears 216. Range 2,800 yards.
Captain, a message from the convoy commander. The convoy has been hit.
New course. 216.
Course 216. Aye, sir.
Lost contact. Able, last bearing 209er. Last range 2,600 yards.
We have just lost a ship. We have lost 2 ships so far. The convoy has been hit.
So we were full of it basically. Completely useless. Oh, we're going too fast. We're going too
All engines
fast.
ahead 1/3.
All engines ahead 1/3. Aye, sir.
We have just lost a ship. We have lost 2 ships so far.
Oh,
The
very nice.
convoy has been hit.
I haven't got a freaking clue. The learning curve of this.
We have just lost a ship.
Okay.
We have lost 3 ships
Oh,
so far.
definitely. Well, am I not surprised? Seriously, man. Seriously. Combat. So that's where we are. Got radar. We should have been turning left or right. Another flare. That's where we are. So he was attacking from the right. Sorry, from the left-hand side. We were in front of the convoy. So clear the whole thing. How do you clear the whole thing? Right. Lookouts. Bridge.
All engines ahead standard.
All engines ahead standard. Aye, sir.
The convoy has been hit.
Stand by to fire.
Extend the view. The U-boat is somewhere down there, right?
We have just lost a ship. We have lost 4 ships so far. The convoy has been hit.
Man, you're a you're a shit captain. So if I
Rudder,
Is it-
10 degrees left.
Rudder, 10 degrees left. Aye, sir.
okay, so the way you point, turning left that way. Okay.
The convoy has been hit. We have lost 5 ships so far.
All
Go
engines
flank
ahead
ahead.
flank.
All engines ahead flank. Aye, sir.
Steady as she goes.
Aye. Steady on course 194.
194. Can't hear shit, obviously, because of the speed.
All engines ahead standard.
All
So
engines
now-
ahead standard.
Now
Aye,
you
sir.
can hear. Can we do this automatically?
The convoy has been hit.
Man, these U-boats are having fucking fun.
Sonar, this is the captain. Perform active search. 2, 3, 5. 2, 3, 2, 5.
Active
Right,
search.
right.
2, 3, 5 through 3, 2, 5. Aye, sir.
Sonar, combat. Investigate arc. 2, 4, 3, through 3, 3, 3. Combat sonar. Investigating arc. 2, 4, 3, through 3, 3, 3. Sonar eye.
A merchant ship has been hit and sunk. We have lost 6 ships so far.
We're gonna run out of freaking merchant ships. We're probably alone. So, okay. So, sonar. No, I don't want that. Combat. Where's the one that it shows where you combat here? Right, so okay, so this is my movement. Right. So I'm gonna use this one as just a freaking test. Are we going south? We are going south. So
New course. 3, 0, 0. Course 3, 0, 0. Aye, sir.
we're gonna do a right.
Hard right rudder.
Hard right.
Right.
Aye, sir.
Right. So we're going back.
All engines ahead flank.
All engines ahead flank. Aye, sir.
So no combat. right? Because I was getting wiped up because of this ratio. So at 300, yeah, but I
Rudder
stabilize
amidships.
Rudder amidships. Aye, sir.
and still be 300.
New course. 300.
Course 300. Aye, sir.
Right, okay, that's what I meant to do.
The convoy has been hit.
Why are you turning?
The convoy has been hit. We have lost 7 ships so far.
I don't have a freaking clue. Oh, we're going too fast. Okay, bridge.
All engines
Standard.
ahead standard.
All engines ahead standard. Aye, sir.
So that's north. Okay,
Hard right rudder.
Hard
let's
right
go
rudder.
north.
Aye, sir.
That's what I reckon it was going to happen. And if I put it at 0, it will stop turning. So this is going right and this is going left.
Rudder amidships.
Rudder amidships. Aye, sir.
So in combat, we'll be going straight. Right, okay. Is this a scenario? It did that automatically. That would be